Hi all, today we'll discuss top MNC Java interview question. So this is related for real-time interview questions which is based on the experience and fresher. So all the interview questions which I have covered based on this Java8, Spring Boot, Microservices, AWS, Kafka and all. So here I collected some of the interview questions which is related for this real-time interview. So this is the first question which I have collected, like how to read session attribute in a Spring MVC. So this is related for a Spring MVC interview question. So how you will read the session attribute. So what are the ways are there to read the session in a Spring MVC? So this is the first question, and apart from this, second questions we have what is the difference between request param and path param. So if you are using any REST API call to communicate from one service to another services, in that cases we will use multiple parameters as a request parameter, path parameters and all. So what is difference between both? And others we have what is the use of model attribute annotation. So this is the third question, which is annotations related interview questions, like what is the model attribute annotation, so when to use this one. And the fourth questions which I have, like what is init binder annotations, when to use init binder annotations and all. And then fifth questions is related for REST, same while we are writing a controller class, in that what is the difference between REST controller and controller. So when to use REST controller, when to use controller. And then the sixth question was difference between component and bean annotation. So these all are related for the bean, related for this annotation with interview question. And the next questions was asked like explain all view resolver and controller in a Spring. So if you are working in this Spring or a Spring Boot, a Spring MVC based applications, so they will ask this type of questions. And then this is what is the difference between XML configuration and annotation based configuration in a Spring. So when to use XML configurations, when to use annotation based configuration. So this is the very important questions which will be asked for all the interviewer. And then other question is like what is the difference between request and session scope. So we have multiple scopes are there. So when we use request scope, when we use session scope, when we use prototype scopes and all. And others is like other interview questions is if dependent bin have prototype scope, if we call get bin method, what will happen? So if you have dependent have prototype scope, so how we will call a get bin method and what will happen in that. So these all are the interview questions which is related for a Spring Boot, a Spring MVC, a Spring based interview questions. And the others questions has asked like what is aware injection, when to use aware injections, and what is the dependency pool and dependency lookup, and what is bean post processor. This is also very important question, bean post processor. Another question is a Spring Bean life cycle. So can you explain a Spring Bean life cycle in the Spring Boot or MVC, whatever you are working? They will ask this Spring Bean life cycle. Another says what is name param, JDBC template and JDBC template. So name parameters and JDBC template. So these two are there. So what is the difference and all? Another is JDBC template is a thread safe or not. So how we can show that JDBC template is thread safe or not. Then how to integrate a Spring with ORM tool, write a program. So we have a ORM tool which is Hibernate, JPA. These all are there while we need to communicate with the database. So how we will integrate a Spring with ORM so that we can communicate with database of layer and all. So like how other question is like how to configure multiple property file in a Spring Boot. So multiple property file is there like in a Spring Boot, how we will configure, like we have application.yaml, application.property or multiple property file, dev property file or QA property file and all. So how you will use this and configure. Then other question is how to execute batch in Spring JDBC. So suppose if you are using JDBC related Spring, So they may be asked like related for batch question, how you will execute a batch and all. Suppose if you are using some schedulers, batch related things, Spring Batch concepts and all in your project, then they may be asked like a difference between row mapper and result set. So these all are the interview questions, and apart from this we have others also, like what is the difference between ref and id ref tag, when to use ref and when to use id ref, how you will handle exception in a Spring MVC. Either they will ask in a Spring MVC, Spring Boot and all, so how you will handle exception. What are the difference between put and post method, when to use put, when to use post. Another question is what is resource class and resource method. And then other question is, next question, like what is use of context annotation in REST. Next question is what is the difference between URL and URI, and what is difference between iterate and execute update method in Hibernate. So this is related for Hibernate, which we use to communicate with our database and layer and service layer. So what is QBC and criteria object in Hibernate? So when to use QBC and criteria in Hibernate, what is that? Another question, next question is what is order class and restrictions class in Hibernate. So these all are related for Hibernate and all. And the next question is what happen if we call get unique result method in Hibernate if you query giving multiple result. So unique result method is there. So when to use and what will happen in that. This is the next questions also related for Hibernate, Maven and JUnit all. So the difference between merge and update in method in Hibernate. So what is the difference merge and update, when to use and all. The next question is what the component mapping in Hibernate. And the next question, how you will configure composite key in Hibernate. What is a group ID and artifact ID in Maven. So this is related for Maven. Suppose if you are using Maven for build your application, so in that we have a Maven lifecycle. In that also we have what is group ID, what is artifact ID in pom.xml. So that pom.xml we have defined this all. So what is this and what is Maven lifecycle and Maven project architecture. The next question is difference between Maven clean, Maven install, and then how to resolve. The next question is how to resolve conflict in Maven. Next question is how you will configure your test cases in Maven. So this type of questions related for ask in Maven, that is build tool which you used, either Maven or any others build tool. And then the next question related for JUnit, what is the difference between after class and before class in JUnit. How to test a void method in JUnit. How to test a void method in JUnit. How you will test the unit test cases for the void method. The next question is how to test your REST API using JUnit. So we are writing a REST API in the Spring Boot application or any applications that's being related. So how you will write the test cases for the void method, REST and all. What are the after class, before class and all. So many things will be asked. So these all are the common interview questions. Please ask one of the top most interviewer in the good company.